We're talking about the five mysteries. These are mysteries that should make you wonder why you believe in science at all. Yes, I said it. I'm an A-scientist. There's a lot of mysteries that science in general ignores. The fact that it's a mystery, or they insert scientism into that mystery. So we're talking about the five biggest mysteries in terms of debunking science, which means revealing the mystery. So if you're a theist, you want to look for these mysteries, get rid of your contradictions, and then say there is a gap. I'm not sure what you can really insert in that gap. That's why it's hard for me to do this. This is me working on my robotic arm. I'm actually getting it to work in my dance videos. It actually looks really natural sometimes. See, it just looks really natural. These are the top ones. Number one, consciousness. People write me all the time. They say science has figured out consciousness. It's on the way. We're going to get the answer soon. And this is the thing. You're not arguing with me. You're arguing with a lot of people. But in particular, you're arguing with David Chalmers, a philosopher who's still alive, who understands the difference between science and philosophy, and wants to speculate. He wants to use his imagination to create this kind of mystery. He's not creating it, he's revealing it. And that is that our subjective experience is way beyond the scope of any scientific question. So when we ask these questions, we ask the wrong ones in science. There's no way to ask the correct ones because currently we have a lot of problems with this subjective experience other than to face it as philosophers. Number two, free will. Talk about it all the time. Go watch the millions of videos. You're not arguing with me about the free will thing. You're arguing with people like Noam Chomsky. You're arguing with people like Aristotle. They're around the same time frame. So Noam Chomsky's point was one that I came to on my own because I'm such a smart white male. And I did kind of come up with it on my own, and then I watched a Noam Chomsky video that was exactly my same belief, which is that we act on knowing. And what that means is that since the art of knowing has been perverted for 250 years, we now have lost this idea that knowing comes to us in different ways. And this, one of the stresses in philosophy has been that the knowing is revealed by action rather than by what's called atomistic thinking. That's a precise term, I suppose. But when we walk out the door, we know we have free will. And the way we act in our lives is based on that knowing. And so the critique from science, when we kind of erase theories of knowing and we come back to them, which is what we should be doing, we start to wonder if that knowledge that we have built in is the revealing factor. And here's the big scientific critique of free will and, in general, common sense principles. And it is that how do we know the difference between intuitive belief that's right and wrong? Which means we thought the world was flat. That came to us as an intuitive belief. So Reed's point was that we universalize it. The universalizing of the world is flat theory didn't work. As a matter of fact, it fell flat. So the fact that it was round was inevitable. Whereas we've been going on for a long time with this free will thing. We haven't gotten a lot of evidence contrary to this idea. And it's completely universalized in terms of everything every single person who has ever lived has done. This is the way Reed talked. Anyway, go watch Noam Chomsky on free will. Contra, Sam Harris. Number three, cosmological argument to me is a good argument. And it's not a good argument the way religious people say it, but cosmological is a content-filled critique as long as you're open to where it leads you. And so in philosophy, we would say cosmological argument, what came first? Why do we have something rather than nothing? Some of these kinds of questions have an open-ended potential for success rather than let me insert my designer in there. But the idea that we have a lot of stuff going on and we need to know why it's going on and why fundamentally there's something rather than nothing are questions which we need to be open to. And that in itself is a huge mystery. Science has gotten nowhere with that. And when we really get to the Big Bang, when we really get to what starts things like the energy that we see moving, the movement of time in the universe in general, which means theories, scientific theories about moving toward a certain state. Those things do not address the real question, which is more of an Aristotelian cause question, which is there something rather than nothing at all? Why was the energy started? Why does it move in one direction? And we should wonder how correct we are when we realize Scientists changed their mind completely that the universe was slowing down and now that it's speeding up. Which is it, bro? Come on. Anyway, those are the first three. I'm going to get to the other two are more interesting. Those are three common mysteries that we look at incorrectly. Number four, the biggest mystery I see, the most creative, the most philosophical, the most interesting. The number one mystery, even though it's number four on my list because I wanted it after the conventional ones, number one most profound mystery is that there's no mystery. I know it sounds weird. I made a bunch of videos lately about this. I don't think anyone grasps it because I'm so smart and white male. I think we're really trained not to understand this mystery. I really think of all the Kantian categorical structures that we place on the world and that we see through a limited type of perception that we don't understand, we can't critique enough. I think this is the biggest one. It is that we are seemingly alone. We seemingly lack mystery. We have these things in the natural world, in the physical world, like gravity, where once they're proven, they become understandable to people. They become universal, however profound they are within the actual context of limits, which is to say maybe gravity doesn't exist as a rule somewhere else. Things in the natural world like gravity, you can think of a million things like this, are things that once they're proven enough with the scientific method, which works in these areas, we accept them pretty easily. And yet, all of the ephemeral, supernatural, and even extraterrestrial concepts fall flat. And people don't agree that they fall flat. I get comments all the time, well, the aliens are coming, they'll be here soon. Scientists don't fully understand things like spoon bending or mass prayer, any of these mysteries. And yet, nobody attends to this fact that those are, in fact, unlike the empty God concept, revealable by science, which means they are evidenceable, which means if we got more information, we would feel differently about them. And the fact, if we look at how people react in reality, people react to these concepts dismissive. That's their first reaction. And even the people that defend them are dismissive on one hand and defending them because of a fantasy belief on the other. And the truth is, if there were aliens, we'd know. It's that simple. People have been debunking other people's claims about what I call ephemeral things for hundreds of years. Debunking fake medicine 200 years ago was a thing. People would go around, charlatans would steal people's money and promise to do this and that. And there were other people who were more scientific that would debunk these things that are scientificable. And so this is true about so many things that this really isn't even my point. I'm trying to show you that there's a huge distinction between the things that became true and the things that are not true that we're still debating as if they have the potential to be true. So once I convince you that those things aren't true, we're not going to see aliens, there's never been any, there's not going to be mind reading, there's not going to be ghosts, there's not going to be all of this breadth of supernatural activity that we pretend to be open. None of that's going to happen. And I'm not saying this because I'm a skeptic. I'm not saying this because I don't do research, which I don't ever do. I'm saying this because we've had enough time. We've had enough time, like we have with these scientific natural laws, to understand them enough to where everyone just accepts them in their everyday life. We don't have this big problem where they have to become a TV show where everyone laughs at it but suspends disbelief so that Bruce Willis can become a ghost. If I can convince you of that, what I'm telling you is there's too little mystery. There's too little, there should be those things. We should have more of these natural laws that transcend the simple physical laws to the extent that they become broader. It's almost like we've hit a wall with these discoveries. And now the supernatural ones, or what we call supernatural, are really going to stay out there for a longer time than they should. And there's a threshold, and we're way past that threshold to the extent that we almost live in a bubble. And if we live in a bubble, we can use a philosophical perspective and an imagination to start to wonder why we're isolated, why we're in a bubble, why we don't have more ability, and this ability has such a sharp threshold. No one's going to agree with me on that one. That's why it's a big mystery. I'll do a whole video on it. Number 5, ethics. If you study ethics and you go back into the real history, you find what's called moral sense theory. And this actually comes from the common sense thinkers, my people, before and after Thomas Reid, but especially before Thomas Reid because they influenced him. And it is that we have natural instincts for ethics. which are built-in innate ideas, which is a Stoic common sense part of the lost philosophy, and that is that things are built in. You can see them built in. We need to accept that they're built in. And so one of those is moral sense, and that is that we have a sense of vision, we have a sense of hearing, we have a sense of smell. But we also have a sense of what's right and wrong, which means once we universalize, we've talked about this previously in this video, once we universalize these things enough, we find that people make mistakes about these kinds of things, but overall, there's a general, simple, universal experience that we have with morality. So religious people will try to, and this is a video for religious people, they will try to say the same thing about God. So many people have the experience that it does underpin a common built-in reality. And no, it doesn't. That's the point. Universalizing is universalizing. Kant understood this. And you don't universalize religion. So many people don't have it. And in addition, we're born and we die without it. I know that's a hard concept to understand. But ethics is not one of those things. It truly is universalized like free will in this sense. That's why it's included in this group. And the fact is that we do have a sense of what's right or wrong once we boil those ethics down to simple fundamental ethics, not context ethics or cultural ethics. When we look at the fundamentals about how we react to right and wrong, and I think Kant really did understand this one. Once we do really understand that, it starts to create a mystery about why that's there and what it's doing. It's certainly not working. So that's a mystery in itself. And again, another video. But that's the end of the 5 things. I hope you can see where the mysteries start. And I want to do videos about each one of them. But that wraps up the 5 mysteries that you focus on when you're trying to debunk science. Thanks for shopping.